Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Justus Parrotta 1988 podcast, Season 2, Episode 3. In this particular episode, I wanted to discuss the cult mentalities of Jeremiah's cult from Babylon 5 and how it is similar to the Verk Troya you compose, we perform mentality. So, as I mentioned, Jeremiah's cult in the TV series Babylon 5 was discovered by opening elevator doors at a missing level. And apparently, there's this cult there that lives on the floor of the space station. It's about the size of a grocery store, and they've locked themselves in there with a Zarg, which is a very dangerous alien. And their belief relies around the following concept. They believe that in order to be one with the universe or become part of it or unify with it, that in order to do so, they need to be consumed or eaten by the Zarg because they believe that is the pinnacle of success in order to become part of the universe. And when Jeremiah reveals that he has a Zarg in this level, the security chief Garibaldi calls him out for being absolutely mashuga. Yeah. And it's interesting to think of the concept of being consumed. Let's rephrase that in terms of the you compose, we perform mentality. Because that way, to be consumed by the notion of the you compose, we perform mentality is the pinnacle. Again, I will reiterate, I believe there's some situations where you shouldn't perform and compose at the same time. I believe that the majority, if you're able to, you should perform it yourself, within reason. So, on to the Verk Troya. Pardon my Deutsch. The cult of the Verk Troya. This is what I put into Gemini to examine this. The you compose, we perform mentality is an 18th and 19th century invention that coincided with the rise of the musical work as fixed in being an untouchable object. Before this, figures like Bach, Mozart, and Liszt were expected to improvise and adapt their scores. Whether this is a cult mentality depends on the level of coercion in sociological terms. Verk Troya, when taken too far, exhibits several cult-like traits. Devaluation of the outsider. Performers who deviate are often shamed as unmusical or disrespectful to the dead master. Avoidance of dissent. Standardized conservatory training often suppresses individual creative agency in favor of a correct interpretation. Totalitarian control. When a musicologist or conductor dictates a performer's physical and mental approach against their will, it creates a power dynamic that prioritizes an abstract ideal over the living human being. And then Gemini said this about one of my questions, which involved two Bach preludes and fugues. The ones that I was thinking of was the prelude in C minor, the Arnstadt prelude in fugue, which is BWV 549, and also the prelude in fugue in A major, which are also two of my absolute favorite J.S. Bach pieces to play, by the way. You mentioned BWV 549 and BWV 536, perfect examples of how J.S. Bach himself was a tweaker. He revised his works for different organs, different rooms, and different physical needs. If the great masters didn't treat their scores as sacred, unchangeable text, the modern insistence that great performers do so is historically inaccurate. In musicology, this is often discussed as Werktreuhe, fidelity to the work, the idea that the performer's primary duty is to be an invisible vessel for the composer's perfect score. Here is a breakdown of why this shift occurred and why forcing it on virtuosi can feel like a loss of artistic agency. Okay, the death of the composer-performer. So what this discusses is composers who performed their own work, who were improvisers. This listed Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, and Liszt, and this is a relatively new invention that gained traction in the late 19th and early 20th centuries before the split. This is key and crucial. A score was often a blueprint. A blueprint. So the absolute basics. Composers expected performers to add ornamentation, cadenzas, and even alter notes based on the instrument or the room. So listen to how it works in this particular acoustic, with this particular keyboard, with this particular harpsichord, with this particular piano, with this particular pipe organ. The modern shift, as music became museum art, the score became sacred text. This forced virtuosos, who were once collaborators, into the role of musical servants. Wow. Cult mentality, it might be hyperbolic. It's accurate in terms of dogmatism. So deification of J.S. Bach, deification of Mozart, deification of Buxtehude or whoever. I am a little queasy about that. It just doesn't feel right. The mistakes versus variations. So I mentioned Bach's BWV 549, the Prelude and Fugue in C minor, and the 536. So this shows an evolution of the score and the issues with recording technology, because recording technology is a fairly new development. So here's what it says. Before recording technology, a performance was a one-time event. Mistakes were fleeting. Now, because a recording is permanent, performers are terrified of deviation, leading to sterile perfection that lacks the spontaneity Bach likely expected. Thank you. I'm going to take a short break, and this is going to be a two-parter, so 2 videos in one day. Take care and see you in the next episode.